our assignment, we actually decided we didn't want to show our faces, so we just made this little animation instead.
For our project, we chose a Fox News article titled Babies Born During COVID-19 Pandemic Tied with Lower IQ Studies Suggest. I'll let Jalen start us off with the scientific journal.
Hi, my name is Jalen Braithwaite, and I wrote the paper on the scientific article of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on cognitive development of early childhood. From the first reports of the coronavirus pandemic in the year 2020, health officials have tried many preventative policies to limit the spread of this disease. These measures include the stay-at-home orders, closing businesses, daycares, schools, and other public places. The whole world had a fear of infection and the possibility of unemployment. While some parents had the pleasure of being able to work from home, it had its own challenges. Not only were the parents trying to work and get things done, but they had to provide around-the-clock childcare. For women who were pregnant during the peak of the pandemic, going to prenatal visits caused a lot more stress than before the virus. The fear of getting sick and losing the baby was higher than ever. This had a huge increase on maternal stress, anxiety, and depression. There are many other concerns: missed education opportunities and reduced social interaction, stimulation, and creative play with other children, which could have a large impact on the neurodevelopment of the child. From the beginning of March 2020, when the country went into lockdown, the economic shutdown had brought significant to the way children live, grow, and play. While children under the age of 5 have been largely spared from the health complications and mortality associated with COVID-19, they have not been immune to the impact of staying at home, wearing masks, and social distancing. These policies were put into place to hopefully stop the spread of COVID-19. Having to close schools, daycares, parks, and playgrounds disrupted children's educational opportunities, limiting explorative play and interactions with other children, and the reduction of physical activity. From the very beginning of the pandemic, there were many concerns about the impact on infant and childhood development and health. While there are no other research on the effect of the lockdown on cognitive development in infants and young children, there is a big concern on the impact from family and home stress. Scientists sought to explore individual and population levels trend in infants and early childhood neurological development. In cognitive development using Mullen's scale of early learning, this tool is used to access the function across the 5 primary domains of fine and gross motor control, comparing yearly mean scores from 2011 by controlling of age, gender, demographic, and social economic indicators. They have found evidence of significantly declining cognitive function in children since the beginning of 2020 and even through 2021.
Hi, my name is Stockton Palmer, and I am comparing the differences between the two articles. In the news article, it talked a lot about environmental factors, including the maternal mental and physical health, and the stress that caused anxiety and depression in the mothers of the children. And throughout the journal as well, it also discussed it was pretty suggestive of the effects that stress had on the mother. But throughout the study, it also stated that all analyses, however, were found that the perceived stress of mothers in the cohort that was studied was unchanged throughout the pandemic and was not significantly associated with the developmental scores. So there wasn't actually anything stating that stress had an actual effect on the mothers. It talked about the maternal education and the significant role that it played in that, which is why one of the things it talked about on how people from lower socioeconomic status had greater effects, it was due to the lack of education, not due to the COVID pandemic. The biggest thing that it talked about in the journal article that it didn't talk about in the news article It says one aspect was not investigated here is the impact of mask wearing by the study staff during child visits and assessments. The inability of infants to see full facial expressions may have eliminated nonverbal cues, muffled instructions, or otherwise altered the understanding of the test questions and instructions. So the journal article explains what could have gone wrong, what could have been causes for these lower numbers other than the pandemic itself, but the news article did not give any of these explanations as to why it could have been this way.
After I read this article, I thought of my nephew born at the start of the pandemic, and he just turned 2. He is remarkably intelligent and thriving. He's picking up on coordination, social cues at the same rate as my cousins his age, if not faster. My cousins weren't born during the pandemic, and my friend has a niece, and I am at her place a lot. She is very intelligent for an infant. She puts words together, sentences, she asks questions, and understands what is being said to her. The media is obviously very biased with the information they share. Fox News shares information about current events that align with Republican views. And CNN does the same exact thing. This is why the country is so divided. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Ethan Hunt, and I was tasked with writing about the similarities between the news article, and the scientific journal. Based on recent studies, we can confirm a decline in cognitive function in children born within the last 18 months of Rhode Island. Though we have calculated theories as to why the underlying cause of this decline is still unknown. It may be due to the first 1,000 days of a child's life being the most crucial to development. Environmental factors including maternal, mental, and physical health, nutrition, stimulation, and supportive caregiving can individually and in combination affect the developing fetal and infant brain throughout this early life period. Many of these factors have been substantively impacted by public health policies enacted in response to the SARS-CoV-2 outbreak. The dataset the article lists includes 1,070 assessments from 605 children prior to March 2020 and 39 children who were born just prior to the pandemic in 2018 and 2019. We find mean ELC values from 2011 and 2019 ranging from 98.5 to 107.3. Mean ELC values for 2020 March to December and 2021 January through August were 86.3 to 78.9. Children in lower socioeconomic families were affected the most, mostly Black and brown children and families. Given these changes in children's home, education, and social environments, it is not surprising that cross-sectional and longitudinal studies of child and adolescent mental health throughout the current pandemic have revealed increases in stress, anxiety, and depression. The journal lists that we find a significant decrease in child cognitive scores in children born during the pandemic, with males being affected more than females. Maternal stress, anxiety, and depression in pregnancy can impact the developing fetal and infant brain structure and connectivity, leading to potential delays in motor, cognitive, and behavioral development. What is unclear from the data, however, is if observed declines or impairments are temporary and will normalize as employment and school closures are lifted and children return to pre-pandemic levels of play and interaction. The family financial insecurity and mental health changes subside.
In conclusion, these two articles presented inaccurate data and inconsistent data throughout. The journal article especially was very inconsistent when discussing the issues that caused the decline in IQ among children. The main inconsistency was discussing the stress on the mothers and the effects that that had on child development in vitro. And the news article failed to address the inconsistencies in the article.